All righty. Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. It is Monday, December the 8th already, a little after 6 p.m. So we'll get started. On yesterday, we talked about a lot of stuff. We uh, spent a lot of time talking about ancestors and got a little bit into libations, but we didn't. Pastor's going to open that up a little bit more tonight unless we have questions to take us in another area. But we talked about beginning in the East and the relationship there and what all that means. And uh, so a lot of stuff said, a lot of detailed stuff. Let's see if we have any questions on what was already discussed before we go any further. Anyone? Okay. If not about what we discussed yesterday, do you have any questions about anything else? Okay. Pastor, the floor is yours.
Um, Yesterday we talked about ancestors in depth, and we covered quite a bit. In addition to talking about ancestors, we also were shown, uh, were given rather a better understanding of Cosmic Mother, a clearer understanding, I should say, maybe, of what the Cosmic Mother is. And we talked briefly about the scripture that speaks about the angels who were cast out of heaven, first being in Ezekiel. If you guys are interested in that, then simply listen at yesterday's lesson if you were not on. And that was in response to something that Charles raised. So I suppose that after having the discussion yesterday, I suppose we need now to get into an understanding of a different aspect of ancestry. We talked about who the ancestors are and how we approach them and why. However, um, all ancestors are not the same. And what I mean by that is this: all ancestors are not elevated. There are, well, would you mute your phones, please? All our ancestors are not elevated. Elevated ancestors are those who have fulfilled their obligations in the earth and have transitioned with honor. What does that mean? Fulfilled their obligations in the earth. If we were to look at it based solely on what we have been discussing in terms of bringing balance to the earth, it would appear as though the ancestors had not fulfilled their obligations in the earth. It is not up to us to determine whether or not an obligation is fulfilled. It is solely in the hands and under the auspices of the universe itself. And when I say universe, I'm talking about the total energy of melanin. I'm also talking about the cosmic mother because there are no differences in those. So when there were um, people in our families who are who were engaged heavily in religion, Christianity in particular for most of us, and they kept us in church. And many of us, um, having grown up in the church, walked away for a little while, but came back to the church. And in doing so, we had several questions that were never answered. Yet we respected those who had reared us in the church, in religion, and we we saw things about Christianity, about religion that didn't make sense to us. Yet we respected the journey that our parents carried us on, and they completed their obligations because they kept us in a space where we were open to learn, to understand, to question what we had been given about Christianity. And in doing so, it opened us up to where we are now. There are many different ways that our ancestors fulfilled their obligations in the earth. They showed us that government doesn't work in our favor, regardless of what it says. They showed us that demonstrating in the streets, engaged in marches, does not work. And they are in doing this, they were fulfilling their obligations by virtue of showing us what did not work. And as a result, we embarked on a pathway to understand what would work. They also showed us that Christianity was not what it was all cracked up to be, because the people who killed Emmett Till were in church every Sunday. And the lynchings that took place um, mostly took place on um, on Sundays. It also showed us that people who get there, when I grew up, there were churches. Everybody in town would get off from work at 12 o'clock on Wednesday. And they were said that they were getting off at 12 on Wednesday because they were preparing for prayer meeting on Wednesday night. However, the reason churches closed on 12 o'clock on Wednesday, white churches in particular, is because Wednesday was the day to auction off enslaved people. But in spite of all of that, our parents kept us in the church. And there was much value in that. Our parents also supported political groups who sought redress through marching in the streets and other means. So fulfilling the obligation is not uh, what we are doing now. There are different aspects of fulfilling the obligation, because if they had not done what they did, then we would not have a history of what did not work. And when they transitioned, there is no question that they have been a guiding force in our lives. And the same people who transitioned, believing that demonstrating would work, demonstrating and appealing to the government for equality, would put us on a steady road of progress. When they transitioned, they saw differently. They saw what Christianity was all about. They also saw the fallacies in the organization. The methods that we used in order to address the inequalities. And as a result of that, they are the ones who formed the questions in us, even though we did not know it. It was our ancestors who were guiding us to this space, and we are not the only ones who they attempted to guide, because we had the opportunity to walk away if we chose to, and there are those who did indeed walk away rather than to stay the course. And one example of that is this. Um, and you've heard me say this before, but I think it's worth repeating again. When this journey was shown to me, and and I began to talk to other people about it. I started telling the churches that I covered about it, but then other preachers about it. And I said to one of the leading preachers, and I put that in quotation, but he was a leading preacher in the area, plus the state and the country. And I said that I have been teaching. I told my people that I have been teaching them wrong, and I would not teach them anything that wasn't in the scriptures because I was only teaching what I had been taught. And he said to me, I may be wrong, but I cannot go and tell them I was wrong. Um, that statement says to me that you know that you are wrong, but you have chosen not to search for the right way, the correct way to speak to your people. Not only that, that same person came to me and said that God had shown him that I was supposed to teach the association and he was going to follow through with it. Well, a week or two later, he came back to me and said to me that God told him he needed to add teachers to support me. What I found out later on was that he told some preachers in that discussing this that he could not allow me to be the one person teaching the association because that would be too much influence for me. So, what did I gather from that? That he made a unilateral decision that he was not going to follow what he had been shown that he was supposed to do because he was power hungry and he felt threatened by virtue of what the Creator had told him about me teaching the association. So I'm telling you this so we will understand that others have had these opportunities to be open to what we are open to. And there was another preacher who he was delivering a message, and his people took their phones out and took pictures of him because he only thing they saw was light. It was as though he disappeared and he became a ball of light. And after that happened, of course, they were. I heard about it from the members and people who were there, and was shown pictures. And he called me and talked to me about it, and we had set a time where we were going to look at some things that I understood about it and search for others so we could get clarity. He never ever fulfilled that appointment, and he walked away from what he was being shown in favor of doing what he had been doing all along. So these are examples that I know personally of people who had the opportunity to open themselves up and travel the journey that we are currently on. Are there any questions about that? Comments? Okay, so um, so when I say that they fulfill their obligations, I've covered that, and now I'm looking at those who did not transition with honor. Uh, these ancestors are are in a well, how can I put this? Well, let me back up, maybe just to help me. The ancestors who transition with honor, they are in the midst of heaven, meaning in the midst of enlightenment. They are in this space where they recognize that they are one with the Akashic consciousness, meaning in a space where everything that has ever been known, ever and everything that shall be known, is available to them. And And this means that they are considered the just because of what they have gone through and because how their lives were led in this earth. These are the ones who transitioned with dignity. And these are the ones who remain available to us, who remain available to guide us along this way. These are the ones who has prepared a pathway for us and continue to watch over us. These are the ones who bring understandings to us, and we wonder where it came from. Now, those who are unelevated, these ancestors who are unelevated, they need a ritual to repair them before they can be an asset to us in a spiritual way. So the question becomes, if this is the case, how in the world do we repair them? How is it can they be repaired? So what am I talking about in general? Um, you remember those of you who read the scriptures in Corinthians, there is a passage that Paul wrote admonishing the readers to pray for the dead. And that puzzled me for years and still puzzled me until the creator um, allowed me to see what I'm being shown. When the okay, so consciousness opened up to me, I'm able now to understand what that meant, even though that was the writing of it was manipulated, mistranslated. However, when we look at the history of spirituality with the African, with the children of Akabalon, we began to see that we do have influence over those who have transitioned before us. And the influence that we have over them is an opportunity to bring them to a place of balance even after they have exited their bodies. And by virtue of them being unelevated, it is up to us, those of us who remain in these bodies, to do what is necessary to repair them and to separate them or forgive them for the troubles that they caused when in this earth. And until that happens, they are continued troubled, they are tormented, they are restless, and they are trying to find a way to free themselves from this restlessness and this torment. So when we look at that, there is a scripture in, I believe it's in Matthew, where it talks about this man who wants to go back and tell his brother what's in store for him, the torment, the trouble, the inability to elevate to the place where he would have elevated if he had lived a life of dignity in the earth and was disallowed to do that. I'm sure that you guys are familiar with that particular scripture. And so the question is, how is it do we facilitate a peaceful transition for those who are unelevated? Before I get into that, I do want to say this. One of the reasons that bodies were brought home in African homes in this country is because we as a people believed that the person who transitioned should not be left alone because the body, the energy of life had not completely left that body, and someone was to escort that body until that body was buried in the ground. And to this day, military have soldiers have military escorts when they are killed in battle. So all of these things that seemingly were benign as we grew up they are truly, truly principles that have been with us for thousands of years, and because of Christianity, our memory have been calcified, and just as our third eye has been calcified, and we are unable to pull those memories through that calcification of our memory. So the Creator raised up people who were willing to do whatever is necessary in order to bring the children of Acabalon in particular to a place of balance, to a place of desire, to bring humanity to a place where the environment is more conducive to a peaceful life in this earth. And, so here we are, understanding that in order for us to bring humanity to a place where they can live a peaceful life in this earth, we first have to be balanced, and we first have to realize, recognize, embrace who we are. And the embracing of who we are cannot be based upon who someone else told us that we are. Who we are is based upon the one who brought us into this earth. And the principles that have been in place for hundreds of thousands of years are the principles that have been the guiding force in our lives up until this point. And these guiding forces have become known to us as our ancestors. And those ancestors who who elevated, they are fine. But those ancestors who are unelevated are in need of our support. And the question is, how do you do that? How do you bring a peaceful transition to someone who has already left this body? There are there are issues that impede the elevation. So it is incumbent upon us to address the issues that impedes that elevation. There is a person, one of the people of whom I spoke earlier. uh, I have been troubled by that person, not troubled in a way that caused me trepidation, but in a way that caused me to search for a way to free them from the agony that they were experiencing. They are stuck and they don't want to be stuck. So I went through a ritual, for lack of a better word, in order to bring them peace. And the way that happened is I was shown that they needed to be forgiven for everything that they did that was a transgression to those who they were charged with covering, as well as those who were in other on the other covering that they manipulated. Also, I was shown that I was to bring healing to them, and that healing to them, to be brought to them, was from the doubt that they expressed, from the challenges that they made towards those things that they were told and shown that the scriptures were saying, and they knew they were true, but they refused to allow them to be taught, and they were always challenged. So that the healing of this person had to take place also. Um, so there are times when we are able to be a ambassador for those who are unelevated, and we are shown that we have the authority to reconcile some of the differences that they had with people when they were in this earth. Also, we also have the authority to forgive, and in terms of the greed that they expressed while they was in the earth. Also, are there any questions so far before keep moving?
Hey, this is Vermel. I'd like to ask a question. The
Yes.
person you're speaking of, in forgiving their where they were stuck, does that also forgive those that they instructed wrong?
No.
Okay.
Those who are instructed wrong has opportunity to to seek the right pathway. I mean, the reason we put things in the macro, the reason that this energy field houses the truth and houses the words and understandings that we talk about in terms of spirituality and how to recognize who we are, that all of this is in the macro. They have opportunity to glean from it. Now,
But that is only for those who are still on this side, right?
absolutely, yes. I'm talking about those who are on the side. Absolutely. Those who are still housed in the bodies. That's who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so someone who's passed and who is stuck, you were also talking about them, right? Being needing
Yes.
forgiveness. Okay, so if they instructed somebody in, like, say, if I were their student and I had passed, would that forgiveness flow through to the ones he instructed wrong who've passed?
No,
Passed?
ma'am. No,
Okay.
ma'am. You are still in your body.
No, I mean, if I had already
If you had
passed,
already transitioned, I have
yes.
no clue about that part of it. All I know
Okay.
is what I was instructed to do for this particular person. As far
Okay.
as those who transitioned,
Hmm.
um, now this is what I believe wholeheartedly, that those who were truly seeking to understand the truth and they were misled, when they exited their bodies, they were able to see what the truth actually is. They had a clearer vision than what they had when they were in their bodies. Therefore, there is no reason to seek to bring forgiveness to them because they see clearly now. The one that I'm talking about knew better and chose not to do better. That's a
Thank you
huge
for clear.
difference.
Thank you for that clarity.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Audrey.
No, that's kind of what I was wondering about too. Not um I don't know what I want to say. So you're saying that um some souls that transition who are not clear in terms of who they are or made a decision not to live in their truth, so they are in a position where they are unelevated. Is that
Yes,
what you're saying?
that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, so do those people interact with this plane?
Those people can interact with this plane, but the problem is this: they have to get their correction first. They have to be healed before they can help. They cannot come back to this plane to change anything as the elevated ancestors do. That is what Jesus was talking about when he gave the example of Davidus. And
Mm-hmm.
when it says that he lifted up his eyes in hell and he desired to come back to tell his brother that he was being tormented and to change his life. Well, in the church, we were taught that that meant he was burning in the fires of hell, but that's not what that scripture
Right.
says. It says that he was being tormented And what was he being tormented with? He was being tormented with all the things that he had done that was unjust, all the things that he had done that were adversarial to peacefulness with humanity in the earth. Because that was the thing that he wanted to go back to warn his brother about.
So, okay, I understand that, but I'm also wondering about, when people talk about instances of where they feel like there's some sort of spiritual entity in the room or that is not um that is not benevolent.
When there are entities in the room who are not benevolent, we feel like they're not benevolent anyway. That's usually because we have been preconditioned to be apprehensive about being in the presence of anything that we can feel but we can't see.
True.
So I do not believe that the Creator will allow someone being tormented to come back to this realm to torment you. I do not believe that at all. As a matter of fact, I know it does not happen. Because if the Creator would not allow Davides to come back to speak to his brother to hopefully change his ways or his journey, there's no way I can believe that the Creator would allow someone who is unelevated to come back to torment you. It just doesn't make sense.
But they torment someone who is not quite balanced.
They have already tormented people before they left. They don't torment anybody.
Okay.
And the
Alright.
reason I say that, Audrey, is because we understand that you create your own heaven and your own hell in this earth. You don't need anyone who's transitioned to come back to help you create your hell or your heaven in the earth, your hell in the earth, rather. So no. There is nothing in the African understanding of ancestry that I have seen that allows for someone who has transitioned to come back into this earth to torment anyone.
Okay, well, what about all these instances of paranormal activity where people are being basically tormented?
Honestly, the paranormal activity that I have looked at is not really paranormal activity in terms of spirituality. We have our minds that can create anything we wanted to create. We can be conditioned to be tormented or to believe that we are being tormented. I mean, I read an activity that was supposed to have happened with some of the charismatic people who woke up one morning and they saw in the middle of the night these devils were standing at the foot of the bed, and they said, "Oh, you gone in the name of Jesus," and went back to sleep. No. There's nothing in me that doesn't resonate with my toenail, let alone my soul. These things were made up in order to bring people into their folds. And the reason I say that is because if you are that steeped in spirituality, then why is it you still calling me a nigger? And I'm talking about Kenneth Hagin in particular. So these things that are called paranormal are figments of their imagination. Come on.
So may I ask a question or add if Audrey's finished?
Yeah. Audrey?
No, go ahead. I don't mean to take us off into any
No, you're not.
other
You're
real
not.
direction, but I am wondering.
Well, I think the reference that you made too about the devil at the foot of the bed, that was Kenneth Copeland. He
It
always
was.
talks about how brave he was and would wake up and go back to sleep. But one of the things I've noticed from my own family members, not immediate family, but extended family members, depending on how you treat someone when they are alive, when they transition, if you mistreated that person or you know that you didn't do right by them or you didn't do everything that you could do to enhance their lives while they were living, there's an element of fear that comes in now. Now that that person is gone, I've had relatives who couldn't sleep in the house anymore. They thought they saw the people everywhere they turned around. They just were tormented in their own minds by the fear of the fact that I don't even know if they recognize that, or they were wanting another opportunity possibly to do it over, where they could have been nicer or done more to help the person before they transition. And I'm speaking of in reference to elderly family members that some people just did not do right by. Their fears have tormented them for years after those people transition, because their minds keep telling them it's something. I guess the question that I'm asking you is, how much does fear play into that, when on the inside it resonates with you that you did not do what you needed to do, and now that you don't have that opportunity to do it, and you don't know how to correct that, now all of a sudden I've seen them thrown into just full-blown panic attacks because they can't sleep, they can't rest at night. They are terrified at night. They won't turn the lights off because they're just afraid that they're going to see this person. So when you were saying the mind creates so much of this, I have literally seen that play out in with family members. And so how much does fear play into that?
First of all, that's guilt. When you have mistreated someone and they transitioned, we know it's guilt because we talk about it. The one who's you've not done anything for them, but you're the one who they had to pick up off the floor because you're grieving so much you can't walk, you pass out. Guilt plays a major part in it. Now, when we talk about fear, fear is something that's instilled in us from church. Because people in church don't pray because they love God. People in church pray because they don't want to go to hell. So fear plays a major role in Christianity. But guilt also plays a major role when someone transitions. So I believe it is more guilt than it is fear. And that means that they have to reconcile with the person who they were mean to or who they mistreated. And that can be done. That reconciliation can be done. Does that help you, Kathy?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
And I'm going to give you an example of that reconciliation that can be done. When I have done counseling with people, with young ladies who've had abortions, and that was heavy on them, especially during the time that they had the abortion or when the baby should have been born. And during the course of the counseling, I asked their permission to process them. And I asked, and when they said yes, I explained to them that my processing you means that I'm going to carry you back to that event, and then we're going to talk about it. And I take them back to the time they had the abortion, and I process them through it by them seeking forgiveness for what they did, the thing that is bothering them, the thing that's keeping them awake at night, the thing that's hurting them so deeply. And they are crying they are uncontrollably sobbing. And when the forgiveness takes place, I say to them, I bring them back to where we are, and we have a conversation. And then I take them back to that event, and they are able to be in that space without breaking down and crying because it has been released. This is a spiritual thing that I have been doing for years without really knowing the total, not the total, but knowing the power of and the foundational structure of what I was doing. It was something that I was shown to do. And I know that it has been beneficial to those who had been mean to folks, or those more specifically who had had an abortion that was driving them up the wall. Does that help? Anyway, I guess questions, comments.
I have a question to ask.
Pastor, Ayo,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Ayo.
My question is twofold. The first one is the saying, "Well done, thy good and faithful servant." Is that a reflection of the elevated ancestors?
Yes, I had to hear it in my head, the scripture itself.
And then the second question is, are unelevated ancestors trapped in purgatory? And is that why beings are being seen like in physical areas on earth?
The concept of purgatory is a theory of Catholicism. The idea of being unelevated does not mention purgatory, but I guess you could call it that if you want to. But what I have seen and what I have been shown is simply there are those who are elevated and there are those who are not elevated. And the studies that I have done and am doing in regards to our ancestors and spirituality is primarily from Nigeria, from Nigerians, the Igbo in particular. So I don't know whether you call it purgatory or what, but all I know is that there are those who are unelevated. And when the Catholics do purgatory, you have to pay to get them out of purgatory. And so I don't subscribe to, I don't even like the term purgatory because of the connotations that it carries.
Pastor, what do you mean you have to pay?
The priest can tell you that if you donate X number of dollars, then they can pray you out of purgatory. You can do Hail Marys to come out of purgatory. It's all kinds of things. There is a whole separate practice in getting people out of purgatory, and only the priest can do it, according to Catholicism.
Mm. Okay.
So, Myra, I hope that helps you. That's the best I can do with that, because I don't subscribe to the concept of purgatory at all.
Yes, sir. What about the spiritual beings that people physically see, like here on Earth?
What are you talking about?
Are those ancestors that are unelevated or who have like something they need to resolve?
I don't quite understand. Are you talking about someone who died and you see them? You have an apparition of them?
Yes, yes, yes.
That if you're unelevated, that apparition is not there. When I was talking to Audrey earlier about that, there is nothing inside of me that I feel, seen, or experienced that this tells me that someone would be allowed to leave that space of spirituality and come back to haunt you or to torment you. I don't believe that. I do believe that you can create it with your mind. I do believe that. I do believe that you can see things that are not there because you talked yourself into it because of the agony that you're going through because of what somebody, how you treated somebody or how they treated you. I believe that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry. Did someone else have a question after her?
No,
Uh,
ma'am.
Oh,
Evelyn
okay.
did.
No,
Okay, Pastor.
I was just gonna say, thank you, Kathy. The scripture that you're talking about where a man wanted to warn his brothers about hell or whatever, that's Luke 16:19 through 31,
Thank
verses
you.
31. Again, Luke 16 chapter, verse 19 through the 31st
Thank you.
verse. You're welcome. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. Thank you, Evelyn.
You know what I
Pastor,
noticed? Go ahead. Go ahead.
now I do have a question because, okay, I'm going to speak from personal experience and having experienced seeing things in my house, the house that I lived in before I moved. And I've shared that with the church family, even showed the video because I caught it on video. I was not thinking about anything living in the house with me. I was not thinking about anything. And at best, I think what we traced it back to, what we could figure, because that was a new house that had been built. It was not where anyone had lived or died in that house or anything like that. Was I had purchased some antique furniture, but those entities were caught on video, and it wasn't me laying down thinking, well, gosh, I bought some antiques. I'm gonna end up having something spiritual going on in my house. That never crossed my mind, but that is exactly that presented as shadows. And then I was telling Nick and everyone Sunday that they left during the event that was the thunder snow, and that's when my pictures that I was taking came out. One of them turned into a video that I did not shoot, that they wanted me to see them leave us. It was first a dark shadow of a tumbleweed that tumbled off the back porch, and when it went into the yard, like it stood up and walked away as two men. I didn't imagine that. I have it on video. I was not thinking of spiritual entities or anything or paranormal activity going on around me in the house or anything like that. But that is a real life experience, and nothing that I did that I was guilty over anything or fearing anything, or not even knowing what shadows were, the shadows that I saw in the house, not even thinking that they even were anything real.
May
So
I
I
ask you a
guess my
question?
question becomes, how do you explain that then? Sure, by all means.
First of all, I can't explain everything, but I see what you're talking about.
Okay.
Did they frighten you?
Not until let me go back. When I could see the shadows standing in front of the oven in the kitchen and one by the door in the living room, that's where they always stayed. I never thought of it as anything other than a shadow, not thinking anything that it could be anything spiritual. So no, but when I saw the video that night, because when I looked back at my pictures to look at what I had captured of the beautiful snowfall, I said, who made a video? Why is there a video in the middle of my pictures? Only to see that it was, I guess the entities themselves wanted me to capture them. Now, when I saw them tumble off the porch and become men and walk away, yeah, that scared me.
Okay.
And if it had not been snowing so much, I probably would have gotten in my car, left, and not gone back into that house.
Okay.
And yeah, it scared me then.
Okay. There's spiritual energy that attach to different places. And even though the house was new, the ground that it sits on was not. So there are instances where people see these shadows and have these apparitions because of the energy that's attached to that space. Usually the fear is not because, well, all I've heard is the fear that is not because it attacked them. The fear is because they saw. Does that make sense so far?
It does.
There were 100 and 80 people, 870 people of the Igbo group from Nigeria. In 1805, the ship landed in Georgia after a mutiny had taken place. And 170 of them from that ship followed their leader, who was the, for lack of a better word, shaman, the spiritual leader. And they walked into the ocean, saying that the water would carry them back to their homeland. 170 people. They never found a body. They never knew what happened to them. But during that period of time of the year, people have said that they heard people singing in a language that they were not familiar with. And it is documented that they were singing as they walked into the ocean. And of course, for all intents and purposes, the bodies drowned. But the question becomes, why is it that they still sing? The other question is, how do we explain the Bermuda Triangle? There have been many explanations attempted, many things said to explain that. Now, I am saying to you that yes, there are energies that are attached to different objects and places in this earth, but they are not here to harm you. There are people who I believe that are who are attached to this earth not because they want to stay here, but because they are guides who help us to become comfortable with our spirituality, and guides who help us to reconcile with our beliefs between this Christianity and what spirituality is. If you tell someone in church that you saw these things, it doesn't matter whether you have it on video or not, they're not going to believe you because we have been conditioned not to. I do not believe that any spirit is in this earth to torment us. I just don't believe that. I do believe that our conditioning has brought us, has instilled fear in us. I believe that.
Yeah.
But I don't believe they're here to harm you. If you are Elohim, then how is it that what you brought into this earth, how can it harm you? I do not believe that. It just doesn't make sense. Now, when I embarked on this journey yesterday, talking about the ancestors, I did not have a clue that we would be talking about people walking around in the earth. Now, my thoughts were that I would just deal with the releasing of them who were trapped. However, it is obvious that there is a need to discuss and talk about the energy forces that are in this earth, and for us to make an effort to understand not necessarily their purposes for being here, but how do we relate to them? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So I do believe that yes, that there are spiritual forces in the earth, but I cannot repeat this enough. They are not here to hurt you. You can't hurt God. I want to ask another question. Has anyone earlier in their life had had apparitions of someone gone, or felt the presence, or saw images and it frightened you, but it doesn't now?
Yeah.
It frightened you, but it doesn't now.
Yes. Yes.
So if it doesn't frighten you now, but it frightened you then, the reason it frightened you then is because you have been conditioned to be afraid of it. Now you know who you are. You don't have a reason to be afraid of it because you are God. You are that energy force. It doesn't matter how chaotic the energy is, it cannot hurt you. It can make you hurt yourself, but it cannot hurt you. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah,
Audrey?
yeah,
Go ahead, Audrey.
yeah. I mean, I know now that it can't hurt me because I can just say, go away. And it's gone. So
And that's because of
that's
who you
not
are.
an issue anymore.
Right. Because you know who you are. Any other questions before I move?
I have one question, Pastor.
Go ahead.
You remember that time? When you remember that time before caller transition, and everybody was trying to get to the church,
No, they're trying to get to
the hospital, and I was still left there because I was using the bathroom. Everybody else was gone, and I heard a voice and said, "Where everybody at?" And I know caller's voice, and I said, "I'll be out in a minute, hon." And I came out the door. I said, "Hello." I didn't see anybody. I didn't hear no one. And something told me that she came to church like she said, but everybody was gone. So we went to the hospital. Yes.
Go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
So we went to the hospital, and everybody was doing what they were doing. I felt in myself to tell everybody she's gone. But I didn't say anything. I just kept it to myself because I didn't want to look stupid and foolish in front of everybody.
That's okay, Charles.
So
You weren't gonna look stupid and foolish.
just,
But I do understand why you're saying that. I do. I understand why you're saying that.
because the reason I said that too, when I was in the hospital, and y'all know I told you the story, I was in my bed. I was on a lot of medication to help me keep from moving and kept me asleep. And my cousin, first cousin, when he died, I don't know why he came to the hospital, but me and him came on a good conversation because I used to take care of him and his sister, like babysit. And they always wanted me to babysit for them. But anyway, he was grown and everything. We didn't see too much of each other. And when I was in the hospital with that accident, he had died probably maybe a week or so, maybe 3 days or so. I don't know. But he came to the hospital, we talked, and I'm thinking that we was talking in the spirit. And carried on good conversation and laughed. And then he said, "I got to go." And I said, "Okay, I'll see you later." And my mama, my aunt, and I don't know who else was with them, they said they went in the corner and they were talking among themselves. And they said, "Don't tell Charles that Freddie passed." I said, "I hear y'all. I already know Freddie passed. Freddie talked to me last night." And they looked at me. Man, I thought I had said something weird. So,
Well, you had to them. Yeah, you had. See, this is what I wanted to do. We've had these experiences before. I doubt very seriously is there anyone who has not had these experiences. That is not my objective to talk about these experiences. The objective is to help us to understand that there are those who are not elevated. They are not in a position to be a guide to us because they are still troubled and being tormented. And we have the power, the authority, however you want to term it, to bring them out of that space that they are in, that they're stuck in, so that they can be elevated. And when they are elevated, they are then in a space where they are able to make sure that what they did in this earth does not be a continuing force in not only their offsprings, but they also can aid others in removing themselves from where they are where they were rather, in terms of the reason that they were stuck. That's the objective, because we can talk about our experiences and who we saw, for quite a while, and not get to the idea of the space rather, where we are talking about what happens, or what is the result rather of them being delivered. Does that make sense?
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it does make sense. My question is, the example you gave, you spoke of specifics, and you even knew some of the things that the person did to put themselves in that position. But I guess I don't know anybody specifically that did those kind of things, but is there a way that you can kind of blanketly pray for those that were in your life that maybe, I don't know.
I'm not going to say you can't run,
Yeah,
and I'm not going to say you can't run, because all I know is that what was shown to me in
okay.
regards to these people. Okay. Now, if there was anyone who any of you know who left here that way, meaning that in an undignified manner in terms of their attitudes when they transition, then you can intervene or intercede, or however you want to term it, for them. Now, it being a blanket thing, I do not know.
You have to do it individual, each individual.
No, if it's Bob, John, Edward, and Gene, then let's list all of them together.
Sure.
Because see, this is the thing. Energy that's used in an adversarial way towards humanity, it doesn't matter whether it's being greedy or whether somebody was murdered. It's still the same thing. It's the same energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you say all together, what you're talking about is a physical name, a name rather, that was given to their physical body. And that in itself is looking beyond the energy. You see where I'm coming from? Because when I dealt with the persons who was brought to me, who I was shown, I dealt with them not based upon their name, but based upon the energy that was adversarial. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, what does this repair work do? It breaks the cycle of negative patterns. It also breaks a cycle of diseases, habits, all kinds of activities. Now, the ones for whom I intervene have offspring, have descendants that I know. Those descendants do not have to embrace change if they choose not to. Just because this person seeks to guide them in a different direction, they don't have to do that if they choose not to. It doesn't mean that they're not hearing it. When you are caught up in really deep in Christianity and you are manipulating people, everything is attributed to the devil that you don't want to do. Regardless, have you heard people say, I'm tired of being the bigger person? What does that mean? I'm tired of forgiving folks.
Yeah.
That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
You can walk through this life like that if you choose to. The objective is to intervene as much as you can so that it does not hinder or does not, is not subsequently passed on to generations to come. All of us have issues within us that we have from generations ago. The question is, what you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? And one of the things that the church loves to talk about is promiscuity. So, are you telling me that it can be changed? Yes, it can. And being promiscuous with the church is, well, we're going to pray for you. And people who are labeled to be promiscuous are not males; they're females by the church. So what I'm saying to you is this: we have to not bypass all of these labels from the church. We have to bypass the church altogether. I was in a class teaching one night, and some of you on this phone were in that class. And I said that I had gone to the hospital with a lady who was elderly, and I stood with her and I talked with her, and she wanted to be released. And I spoke with her and released her, and she transitioned. And this preacher said, no, that did not happen. You don't leave here until God says it's time for you to leave. He said she would go die anyway. And I said, I'm not the only one who has released people and named someone else. And he still said, no, it did not happen. This is the reason that you have to bypass the church. Because the church has a set of rules that have been put in place by people who know absolutely nothing about spirituality and care even less about the people who are spiritual. These rules are what our people play by. That's the rules of the church, and we need to bypass that. You will never release somebody who is stuck if you listen to the rules of the church. You will never believe that you're God if you listen to the rules of the church. You will never do repair work to help anybody if you listen to the rules of the church. I'm going to share you something with you. I'm going to show you how crazy things are in the church. I was talking to Ron. I said to Ron, I said, you know what I'm going to do? The very next time I'm sitting in the pulpit and someone asks me to pray, I'm going to get up and tell them I'm not going to pray. Because Jesus said that when you pray, you go into your closet. There is nothing in the Bible that speaks to us making public prayers. Nothing. Everything in there that talks about prayer, especially what Jesus said. He said, don't be like the hireling standing on the corner. He said, don't pray in public. That's what he's saying. Now, you walk into the church and you got a program in your hand and it says invocation. What are you going to do? Because if you're dealing with it based on the Bible, you would not pray in public. There are no public prayers. Yet, the rule in the church is that you pray when you're called upon. Are you with me? That is the reason the principles that we are talking about don't work in the church, because the church does not believe in the Bible. The church believes in denominational doctrine, not the Bible. It believes in what it was taught. It doesn't believe in what's in the scriptures. So I'm going to leave that alone for a moment and move a little bit further. When we do this, when we intervene, intercede, we bring balance. We bring balance because the person can never be elevated if it's not balanced. And the spiritual essence, the person for whom you are interceding is now at peace as a result of you playing the role that you should play. Now, why is it that you're able to do that? How is it that you're able to do that? How is it that you're able to intervene for somebody who's already transitioned? How is it that you are able to forgive someone? How is it that you are able to seek guidance from the ancestors? How can you do that? Why is it that you have the authority that you have? And you did not have it when you were in church. Why? Because you know who you are. When you embrace who you are, it is then that you are able to go beyond what humans say that you can go. Beyond the whatever the human. You know what I'm trying to say.
So you don't know every pastor who has transitioned, of course, but if I'm look, let's let's say that the person that you describe has. What I'm saying is, like, if there are others out there who are like him, who recognize, oh my God, look at what I've done. There's no way that your prayer has released them as well. If they were ministers and so
I don't know.
okay.
I will say this: that the energy forces. Their energy comes back to this earth in bodily form. We call it reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
And that energy comes back to correct what it has, the wrong that it left behind from the beginning. It has opportunity to do that. It does not come back necessarily in the same family structure in terms of biology, but it
Right.
does come back to the earth to correct, to make those corrections. And that is also seen in the spiritual beliefs of those in Nigeria, or those who are children of a cable line. Something else also, if you are a shaman, if you are someone who has transitioned with dignity, that energy also comes back into the earth.
Mm.
In a body to guide people. Let's say, for example, that the energy that guided me to read those to look up the words in the scriptures and guided me along the way to help me change my view of how spirituality is and begin to bring people together and help them to see who they are. Do I believe that this is the first time that this energy has been in the earth? No, I don't. Now, what shaman is it? Where did it come from? I don't know. But I do know that I have a very strong affinity for understanding the priesthood of Kemet. I do know that. A very strong desire to understand it.
Yeah.
Now, did it come from the Achaemenid priests? I don't know. But it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is this, that I can see who I am, but not only that, I have followed and am following the guidance that I have been receiving from the ancestors, even when I called them God before I knew who I am. I do know that. And I hold to that so deeply until I said to the Creator, if I ever lead people wrong, take me out of this earth. I believe that the things that I have been shown and have taught, I can't speak for you, but I can speak for me. I believe that those things that I have taught has changed the trajectory of the life of humanity. I believe that. I believe it has influenced that.
Yeah.
And I would add this to it also. I said this, and some people gave me pushback on it, but I feel it strongly. If I leave this body tonight, I'm good. I have no problem leaving tonight. I am so committed to humanity's enhancement until the moment that the ancestors see that I can be more effective outside of this body. I want it to happen. I do not want to wake up in the morning if that's what is required of me. I have no qualms with joining the ancestors, none whatsoever. There is nothing physical in terms of materialism to keep me in this earth. Ask yourself, where do you stand in relationship to that? I want to talk about libations, but I think I need to save that. Because I have a feeling that there are other questions about the unelevated. I do believe that there are questions about it. And I would that you bring them. And I noticed that there were no questions, or little questions anyway, about the ancestors, period. But the biggest questions are about those who were not elevated. Why do you think that is so? And that is not rhetorical. And I will share with you what I feel, or what resonates with me rather about that. Why is it that there were more questions about the unelevated? And I'm not talking about the experience that we have in seeing other people. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about those who are troubled spirits, those who left their bodies without dignity. Why?
I have known people, one in particular family member who left here, and I remember when I heard that he had transitioned, I remember my first thought was, what are they going to say about him? Because I could not think of anything good to say about him. And I went to his funeral and I watched the people struggle who got up to speak. And they talked about his family. And he had this amount of kids, and his wife was this and that, but they struggled to say anything kind about him. It's people like that that I have thought about over the years. So
So why is it that you thank you, Ron? Why do you think it's a struggle to talk about that? I mean, why there so many questions about that, rather?
I think for myself, I have become very comfortable since we've been teaching and understanding about ancestors. I've embraced that, and I've become very comfortable with the fact that I have ancestors and how they guide and direct my life. The unelevated is new to me. Hearing that this is new information, and it's not that I'm discounting it at all, because I'm not. I am just embracing it a little slower because it's new information for me. And so as I'm learning this, it's resonating, I'm embracing it. But I want to make certain with my questions as I'm questioning, I want to make certain that I'm understanding what you're laying out before us, because it's very new territory, something that I was not aware of. And I can only speak for myself. So thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Thank
Yeah,
you, Kathy.
I agree with Kathy. This is something new that we have to process. But I too have become comfortable with the idea of ancestors and how they guide us. Because we had rudimentary ideas about that when we thought about angels or whatever. So the idea of ancestors just kind of fits. But the unelevated ones, yeah, it's new information. And as Ron was saying, most of us know people who we think probably are not elevated. Well, I mean, we're judging, but still, just
Mhm.
based on their life experience, and the attitudes that they had. But my question though is, I'm not sure I'm clear on what it is we do to intervene for those ancestors who are not elevated.
I'll tell you what
What's
I
that
did.
entail?
I'll tell you what I did. Um, Before I tell you that, let me say this. When Paul said pray for the dead, I felt like it didn't make sense that Paul was playing games again until I begun to understand African ancestry. Why would you be praying for the dead who elevated, who left him with dignity? There's no reason to pray for them. So he was talking about the unelevated people. Now, who are stuck. Now, repeat your question again, Audrey.
I just want clarity on how we
Okay.
intervene for those people.
What I did, I started meditating. And I've told you guys how I meditate. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. And as I was meditating, I felt this strong presence, and was brought to my memory that I should do this. And I said simply to the ancestors, guide me in this, because I don't know how to do this. And the words flowed from my mouth. And some of the words that flowed from me were words expressing my deep regret that he was unable to be reached before he transitioned. And my heart goes out to him because out of his ignorance, he brought this on himself. But for everything that happened to me and those around me and those who I don't even know, I forgive him on their behalf. I seek to free him from this space of bondage that he is experiencing now, that he may be elevated with the other ancestors and use the pain of what he has gone through since he transitioned to help others in the earth to avoid the pitfalls that he could not avoid while he was in the earth. That's what I did. And I did not stop. I was not thinking when I was going in. I was not thinking about anything. All of a sudden, it was over. It was done. That's how it happened. And I have not had a dream about him since. I have not felt the weight when I think about him anymore since that happened. But that's how I did it. The reason I believe that there are so many questions about the unelevated is because your hearts are right. Your heart is right. Your desire is deliverance from all, even those who have left these bodies. That's why I believe there were the questions. You want to understand it because you want to be an assistant not only to humanity in this earth, but even those who have left their bodies. That's why I believe the questions, there were so many questions about it, because as you said, it's new. It's something we have not understood or talked about. But I believe it's because of your heart.
Does it also involve forgiveness,
Yes,
that person?
yes. Forgiveness, healing, all of it. Everything.
Because, well, the reason I'm asking is because in the last 6 months or so, I've talked to 3 people and I've said to them, you know, that person that transitioned now has coming to a place where they are all knowing. So certainly they feel regret about whatever they did or didn't do. So all you can do now is just to forgive them. But I wasn't thinking about it in terms of them being unelevated or actually needing that forgiveness. I was thinking about the living person needing to just relinquish whatever they were, whatever negative feelings they had about the person. Because now that person who is in that space, because they're all knowing, they can possibly be of help to the person who's still alive.
You know what the difference is, Audrey?
Sorry?
You know what the difference is?
What's that?
95% of the people who are Christian they don't know how to forgive. I know this for a fact. When I did counseling, the most difficult thing was to get people who were Christians to forgive. They say I forgave them. And I said, let me process you. And when I take them back to that place where the event took place or where somebody said something to them, they struggled to say I forgive you when they were in their presence. The church says I forgive, but they don't know what it means. It's simply something that flows through their mouth, just like they say I love you. It's not, it does not have the power. It doesn't have the energy. It doesn't have the oomph that it takes for you to release that without regard to what happened to you. This guy murdered somebody, and it was haunting him. And he wanted forgiveness from the person. And I said to him, first of all, he shot at you, so you forgive him. And then we will deal with the other side of that. He struggled with that. I've had women who have been raped, and they said, "Yeah, I forgave him, and I'm done with it." And when I take them back to the event, they cannot say, "I forgive." I've had people who could not release that. They could not let those words come from their mouth. They could not say it. And to this day, some of them still hasn't said it. But every one of them was in church every Sunday. Forgiving is more than just speaking a word. It's much more in depth than that. And we have been taught in church to say things because that's what's expected of us. Just like we stand up and pray publicly because that's what's expected of us when the scripture says don't. It's different. It's real different. And when the words that you spoke about them carries a lot of energy, goes to them with a lot of energy because you know who you are. You have embraced the power, the essence, the authority of who you are. Now the question is, did they do it? Did they follow through? And if they did, was it something that they just said, casually say, you know what, I forgive you? How many times have we said that? And every single person I've talked to about forgiveness said that I have forgiven them. I have let it go until they're faced with it again. Processing came to me, that method of forgiveness, that method of deliverance. I did not search for it. It was shown to me years ago. And now I understand why. So yes, I believe you guys are where you are and experiencing what you're experiencing and the questioning because you have a heart for humanity. You are no different than what the scripture says. Your desire is that none will be stuck, none will be unelevated, but all will be delivered from everything that besets them. That's the desire. And that brings the questions. I did not hear one person do as that preacher did. It did not happen. It was all about seeking to understand. And I'll sit here as long as the questions come and conversation is there because, as I said, I don't have all the answers. But when questions come, most of the time, I am shown the response that is to be given. And I don't take that lightly. Are there any questions or comments?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. A lot, have been said since Saturday, Sunday, and tonight. I'm visualizing and I'm experiencing that we have placed religion in the center of our circle. And I see the change where as we acknowledge our ancestors and we place them in the center of our circle, realizing that when we are being counseled, when we are being given the opportunity of experiencing the Akebelonian essence, it made me think about when Audrey said yesterday in terms of our name, our new name. And I think, and I feel, and I know that it's that reverence that we have for our ancestors that are now revealing to us that pathway that has been given to us from the beginning. So I'm only feeling and knowing that, tonight, when we are able to adhere to the counsel of our elders and we're able to appreciate the energy of the Creator and our ancestors, is now elevating us, is now giving us understanding. It's giving us the opportunity to be able to reach out in that way when we talk about the church as a whole. And so I'll just simply just say that, the question came up about men, and I just want to say this for a moment, in reference to why men do not go to church. And I'm only speaking it from my own perspective now, is that I'm grateful because I lived in that circle where religion was my teacher. However, now, today, in the moment, I appreciate the ancestry of our knowing that I am Elohim. And so I just wanted to share those thoughts. And I know that, again, it's just so much has been said, but I truly appreciate being able to know for myself that it's not the religion that's in the center of the circle for me. It's me it's knowing Elohim, being Elohim, and listening to the elders, to the ancestors, and to the Creator. I'm done. I just wanted to share those thoughts.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
My question is, when we pour out libations, are we pouring it out to the elevated ancestors, or it doesn't matter? It's just ancestors across the board.
When we pour libations, we are pouring libations in honor of the ancestors. Libation is not a ritual. It is a remembrance. And we'll get more into that, I guess, on Saturday. But it's to the ancestors, period.
Thank you.
Thank you. When we speak the words to our ancestors, we're not asking them to grant us energy to be one with them. When we speak to our ancestors, we are aligning with energy by virtue of our acknowledging their presence. The acknowledgement of the ancestors shows us that we are divine beings and is different than what happens in the church. When prayer goes out in the church, it's asking for something, it's begging for something. When the children of Akebalon speak to the Creator, the ancestors, the cosmic mother, it's not begging for anything, it's acknowledging everything with the understanding that you're not speaking to something outside of you, but you are speaking to something that's one with you. And therein lies the vibrations that are necessary to fulfill the journey that we're on and to experience the presence of those who have passed this way prior to us. So tonight, I leave you with that. I leave you with the understanding that speaking to the ancestors is not a prayer. It is a recognition of a frequency that all of us desire to be one with. We vibrate with it. And that's how we experience change. I'm done. To the ancestors, I honor you. And I'm grateful that you walk with us.
Ashe.
Shay.
Ashe.
You know, Ashe is not the end of a sentence. It is the opening of a gateway
Mm.
so that what we speak will pass through that gateway to benefit humanity.
Ashe.
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 Beautiful evening. Beautiful evening. Great energy. I'm excited. I agree with what's been said. It was new to me as well, and I'm excited about this. Don't know what to do yet, but I'm excited.
Just let it do it to you.
Yeah.
Whatever it is to do, you'll know.
Right. Well, have a great evening, everyone, and enjoy your rest of your week. And again, thank you.
Have a great
Thank
week.
you for all your questions,
you.
comments. I look forward to them on Saturday.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
week.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
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 you.
you, everyone.
See everyone. Bye.